Hi everyone. Tonight we're going to start somewhere strange but very real. Imagine sitting in your room scrolling, and suddenly this video shows up like a note slipped under your door by the universe itself. You probably won't survive this as the same person you were 10 minutes ago. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Post your location and your local time so we can see how far this signal is traveling. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. I didn't find you. Your own consciousness magnetized this moment. The very act of reading or hearing these words means your internal frequency has already shifted. You're not waiting for some external initiation or complicated ritual. You already crossed an invisible threshold where a built-in function of consciousness, what we're calling the quantum jump key, turns itself on. That's why the ideas feel oddly familiar, like a memory surfacing rather than new information. Old age wisdom says when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But in quantum terms, the teacher is really your own expanded awareness surfacing through whatever form you'll recognize. As your nervous system hits this threshold, your perception begins to rewire itself, firing in sequences it hasn't used since you were a kid. Academic debate might call this a self-referential feedback loop or spontaneous neural plasticity. I call it the moment you stop being a passive consumer of reality and start being an active selector. Even my cat senses these shifts. She's been staring at me like I'm a new channel on TV. Quirky, yes, but a sign of resonance. This is the activation threshold. Recognizing that you're here at this precise point is already part of the jump. It's the first crack in the old pattern, proof that your built-in key is live and waiting to be used. I used to think quantum jumping was some kind of mystical teleportation trick, like hopping into a sci-fi movie where the scenery changes with a snap of your fingers. But the longer I watched my own attention at work, the clearer it became. Nothing is actually somewhere else. All versions of reality already exist right here. Every second, my consciousness acts like a selector, collapsing one option out of an infinite spread of possibilities into the scene I'm living. I'm not traveling, I'm tuning. Old age wisdom compares it to a radio dial, but the academic debate calls it state-dependent perception. Either way, you're not moving. Your focus is. Think about your morning routine. You wake up, check your phone, think the same thoughts, scroll the same feeds, react with the same emotions. That loop is you choosing yesterday's timeline again today. The menu of realities hasn't shrunk. You've just been ordering the same dish. It's a bit like those diners where the waiter doesn't even hand you a menu anymore because you always pick the same thing. Quirky, but true. Once you see it, change stops feeling like a big move and starts feeling like a shift in gaze. You realize the difference between being at the mercy of circumstances and being the conscious observer who shapes which version collapses into form. The first time I experienced this, I was sitting in traffic laughing because nothing outside had changed. My car was still stuck, but my inner state had already jumped. By the time the light turned green, everything about my day began to reorganize to match the new frequency. That's the heart of it. Quantum jumping isn't leaving this world. It's selecting which channel of this world you're going to live from. And once you feel yourself as the selector, the idea of being trapped loses its grip completely. When my own quantum jump key switched on, reality began to shimmer at the edges. Time stopped behaving like a neat row of boxes. Some minutes stretched so long, I felt like I could knit a scarf between ticks of the clock. Other days disappeared in a blink, like sand slipping through my fingers. Old age wisdom would say, time flies when you're having fun, but this was different. Academic debate would call it temporal elasticity, a signature that consciousness is loosening from linear constraints. I started noticing what I used to call glitches. Conversations repeating word for word, strangers acting as if we'd met before, events playing out with an eerie deja vu precision. It was funny at first, like I was living inside a badly written sitcom where the writers were recycling scripts. But gradually I realized these weren't coincidences. They were quantum bleeds, glimpses of multiple probability streams brushing against each other. My dreams turned vivid, almost cinematic, full of symbols that felt like messages from a future me. I'd wake up with knowledge I hadn't studied, or a strong pull toward a new decision without any logical reason. Even my intuition sharpened into sudden knowing, like I was remembering rather than guessing. Quirky example. I once knew my friend was about to text me about lemon pie before the phone even buzzed, and she hates lemon pie. At the same time, my sensitivity to people's emotions and subtle energy spiked. Walking into a room felt like tuning into 10 radio stations at once. Mirrors seemed to ripple, electronics glitched during high-energy moments, and animals behaved as if they were tracking my field instead of my footsteps. Far from being random oddities, these are the clear signs that awareness is no longer locked into one stream, but is sampling from several at once. Recognizing them keeps me steady as the shift accelerates. Then came the part nobody warns you about, the identity melt. One morning, I woke up feeling like my old self had leaked out overnight, leaving a hollow shell full of strange sensations. Depression crept in, old ambitions dissolved, and even my favorite foods tasted off. At first, I thought something was seriously wrong, but an old age wisdom line from my grandmother surfaced. The snake sheds its skin to grow, and I realized maybe my breakdown was actually a breakthrough. In academic debate terms, it wasn't pathology at all, but a liminal phase, the messy stage between old patterns and new coherence. It felt like the caterpillar stage inside the chrysalis, everything familiar liquefying before wings appear. My nervous system was buzzing, sometimes literally tingling at the base of my skull, as if rewiring itself to handle higher energetic frequencies. I'd forget names, lose track of time, cry for no reason, then laugh at how surreal it all felt. Quirky fact, I once tried to meditate and ended up cleaning my fridge at 2 a.m., convinced it held cosmic messages in the leftovers. Old habits, relationships, and mental loops began falling away without effort. Some friends drifted, new ones arrived with uncanny timing. Instead of collapsing under the weight of loss, I started to feel space opening inside me, like an empty stage waiting for a new script. Seeing it as growth rather than collapse shifted everything. My nervous system was learning to broadcast on a different frequency, not failing at being normal. Recognizing this stage for what it is, transformation rather than dysfunction, allowed me to move through it with steadiness and a touch of humor. The caterpillar doesn't know it's going to be a butterfly. It only knows its old form is gone. That perspective kept me from panicking as my old self dissolved and my quantum identity emerged. Eventually, I stopped trying to make the shift happen and started letting it happen. All the forcing, manifesting, and micromanaging only made my reality feel heavier, like pushing a shopping cart with the brakes on. Old age wisdom says, a watched pot never boils. And in this context, it was true. Constantly scanning for proof of progress only kept me stuck in yesterday's timeline. Academic debate might call this observer interference, where the act of checking reinforces the pattern you're trying to escape. The real mechanism of quantum jumping revealed itself when I learned to let my attention relax. Instead of reaching outward, I began tuning inward to the version of me that already existed in my desired reality. Observation plus coherence collapsed that probability into my experience without me doing anything. My awareness shifted from a searchlight, tight, intense, fixated, to sunlight, broad, gentle, illuminating everything at once. Quirky fact: during this period, I literally forgot to set alarms and yet woke up exactly when I needed to, as if my inner clock was synced with something bigger. I practiced meta-awareness, noticing where my attention naturally gravitated and gently loosening its grip. No rituals, no mental gymnastics, just a steady shift in the quality of focus. Gradually, my inner state became harmonious. Thoughts, emotions, and sensations aligned like instruments tuning to the same note. That coherence was the real switch. In that openness, experiences I'd never imagined began appearing effortlessly. New conversations, unexpected resources, subtle but undeniable shifts in my body and environment. It wasn't about creating something new, but recognizing and inhabiting what was already broadcasting on another frequency. Letting go of effort and aligning with coherence became the key to collapsing new probabilities into my lived reality. Once my own shift stabilized, I started to notice something bigger happening. Each personal breakthrough seemed to ripple outward, like dropping a stone in water and watching the rings spread. People around me would spontaneously open up about their own changes. Friends began reporting vivid dreams after spending time with me, and even strangers commented that my presence felt different. That's when an old age wisdom phrase echoed in my head: one candle lights 1,000. In academic debate language, this is called a morphic field, an invisible network where each new pattern makes it easier for others to resonate with it. Humanity itself feels like it's in a collective observer loop destabilization. Systems, beliefs, and routines that seemed permanent are cracking, and the cracks aren't just chaos. They're openings for mass consciousness evolution. My quirky realization was seeing a viral meme one morning that perfectly mirrored a dream I'd had the night before. A random but vivid sign of the collective unconscious syncing up. Every time I released another layer of my old frequency, synchronicities multiplied, not just for me, but for people close to me. Relationships healed faster, collaborations came together with no planning, and I could feel a shared momentum building. It wasn't about me being special, it was about me becoming coherent enough to act as a tuning fork for others. Seeing my transformation as part of a larger shift removed a lot of self-doubt. Feeling called to change stopped seeming selfish or weird and started feeling like service. Every small shift in my attention was making the next person's breakthrough a little easier. That understanding kept me grounded and humble while the world around me began to reorganize in ways I could never have predicted. Then came the unmistakable signs that I was no longer trapped in the old loop. Synchronicities stopped being subtle winks and became full-on cosmic nudges. I'd think of someone and they'd text within minutes. A problem I'd been mulling over would resolve before I even took action. Old age wisdom says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. In this phase, the teacher appeared everywhere, on billboards, in overheard conversations, even inside my own jokes. Academic debate would call this non-local correlation, but for me, it felt like reality had started echoing back my inner state with stunning precision. Animals and technology also responded differently. My cat, who usually ignored me, began curling up next to me during meditations. Birds lingered on the balcony, staring straight at me, and squirrels started doing strange check-ins when I walked past. Electronics glitched less when I was calm and more when I was agitated. My phone battery would drain during stress, but last for days when I felt aligned. The quirky highlight: streetlights actually flickered on as I walked under them 3 nights in a row, like some low-budget superhero origin story. Time and sleep patterns transformed as well. Hours could feel like minutes when I was fully present, while whole days disappeared when I was absorbed in creative flow. Dreams became vivid, symbolic, and instructional, like nightly seminars from a wiser version of myself. I'd wake with ideas and solutions that felt remembered rather than invented. Even my health and relationships shifted without deliberate effort. Lingering issues eased, conversations became smoother, and supportive people appeared naturally. All of it was evidence of increasing coherence between my consciousness and the quantum field. It wasn't random magic. It was the natural outcome of no longer reinforcing old patterns and instead inhabiting a reality aligned with my highest potential. Anchoring this new state turned out to be far simpler than my old self would have believed. Instead of complex rituals or endless affirmations, a single clear word became my tuning fork. Saying or typing quantum with genuine recognition wasn't just a catchy mantra. It was a conscious signal to my own awareness and to the wider field that I was ready to inhabit a different frequency. Old age wisdom says, a word once spoken can't be recalled, and in this context, that one word felt like a declaration to the universe. In academic debate language, it functioned as a performative speech act, an utterance that actually changes the state of affairs when spoken. This wasn't about engagement or chasing algorithmic approval. It was about making a simple, authentic statement that aligned my energy with the timeline I had chosen. The quirky part is that every time I made the declaration, my phone would buzz with a text or a notification as if reality itself was nodding back. Joining others who made the same statement linked me into a collective network where each person's coherence strengthened everyone else's. I started to treat that one-word declaration like planting a flag in new territory. Each time I wrote it, whispered it, or even thought it with intention, it locked in the frequency I wanted to live from. Rather than trying to hold on to a feeling, I let the word act as an anchor. In that surrender, reality began reorganizing itself naturally around the new signal. This approach removed pressure and made the process playful. Instead of striving to manifest, I practiced conscious reality selection, choosing my timeline not with effort, but with recognition. That one word became both my personal anchor and my doorway into a shared field of conscious creation. This narrative traces my journey from recognizing the observer loop to experiencing unmistakable signs of a quantum shift and finally anchoring a new reality. I describe how awareness acts as a selector of infinite possibilities, how time distortion, synchronicities, and heightened sensitivity signal activation, and how apparent breakdowns are actually rewiring phases, preparing consciousness for higher frequencies. Rather than forcing outcomes, I learned to allow coherence between my inner state and the quantum field. Each personal breakthrough feeds a larger morphic field, accelerating mass transformation. A single authentic declaration, quantum, locks in the shift and links us into a collective network of conscious reality creation.